Hello, everyone. Today we're going to look at a panel at the Women in Technology International Summit, which was held earlier this month. Our panel in question concerns the topic Gender Equality in Large Organizations. Our featured speakers are Amy Logan, founder and CEO of Gender Innovation, Nadia Chargaloff, Vice President of Human Resources at Telstra, Suzette Jeskowiak, Senior Director of Pharmacy, Health and Wellness Technology at Walgreens, and Benita Banducci, Lecturer on Gender and Engineering at Santa Clara University's Institute for Women's Leadership. So, 4 professional female experts who have lived the issue of gender equality in large organizations. 4 women who know what the problems are and can offer some solutions. All right, I am ready to be educated. Let's begin.
And I'm excited about today because we're going to start with an image that is from McKinsey, and it's something that I think really tells the story of the whole conference today, and just kind of starting with the reality of gender equality in the corporate pipeline. So I want to start with this question of, is representation, specifically just gender representation, is that step 1 of this whole movement? And if it's not, what is?
Okay, just to make sure we're clear, the question at hand is gender representation, which I take to mean merely the presence of women in the various levels of organizational power, is that the first step? And I'm also having to assume that he means the first step towards gender equality.
Well, I certainly think that the presence of women is important, naturally. I think what might be, I guess in my mind, sort of the linchpin issue is really the redistribution of unpaid care and work. So what I mean by that is the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, the child care, the caring for the sick and the elderly, which all over the world disproportionately falls on the shoulders of women.
Wait. The linchpin towards gender equality in large organizations is the distribution of unpaid work. Cooking, cleaning, caring for the elderly, all of this falls disproportionately on women. All right. Well, assuming that is true, what could possibly be causing that? And
so their partners need to step up and share that burden so that women can advance in the workplace. And a lot of times when the partners are asked, why they don't, or the reasons they give, partly that is attributed to the fact that they will be stigmatized or penalized at work. So I feel like employers really need to actually step up and create corporate cultures that are family-friendly.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. So men are not doing cooking and cleaning at home because they fear they will be stigmatized at work for doing so. Men are afraid of being teased for doing housework. So, aside from going to work every day to provide for their families, men need to step up in the housework because housework is what is holding women back from gaining positions of power in large organizations. Got it.
So that not only will women advance in the workplace and to become whole people, but men will have deeper relationships with their family members and become whole people too.
Men who don't cook or clean are not whole people and are not connected with their families. Women who are not advancing in the workplace are also not whole people. Got it.
So that's kind of my thinking. Having women present is one thing, but having a corporate culture that is welcoming and embraces whole people with all of their lives is critical in my mind.
Wait. A corporate culture that embraces whole people. Should a corporate culture be dictating to its employees how they choose to manage their home lives? I really hope I am misunderstanding something here.
I absolutely agree, and I'd like to take the other side of the other dimension to this, which is that it's not just about putting women in and stirring. It's not just about the numbers.
It's not just about the numbers. Well, the infographic shown earlier was all about the numbers. The purported goal here is gender equality in large organizations, with equality consistently being referenced as achieving a 50-50 split of male and female employees, most often in the top-tier positions. But, okay, it's not just the numbers. So, what else is it about?
We were talking earlier about even one woman on a board that makes a difference. But it's not a critical mass. There's been research that shows that you need to have a critical mass of, for instance, 3 women on the board. And 20%, I think, is usually the percentage to have a culture of different perspective at a decision-making table, although one will make a difference.
So, critical mass is 20% women. Not necessarily 20% qualified women, just 20% women. But isn't that still about the numbers? I thought it wasn't just about the numbers.
And my own work has to do with not just communication, but really understanding the different competencies that women often bring, or what I will call more relational people, because they're also men who are more relational, whether it's the cultural influence or other influences. But this whole set of relational competencies that some of you have been in my sessions and known about, I'm not going to go into it now, but I think the main point is it's become pretty well recognized that you don't just add women and stir.
Sure, I would agree with that. Presumably, well, hopefully, a woman being in a position of leadership, or any position really, is qualified to be there as an individual regardless of what they have between their legs. Our speaker didn't really give any specifics on what the other factors should be, outside of numbers, but I can appreciate that she's not necessarily only promoting aesthetics over merit.
What I would add is I agree that having the presence of women is important, and I do think it needs to be a critical mass. There is research that shows, you hear, well, sometimes women are really supportive of other women, and sometimes women are really nasty to other women. And in research, what they found is the highest contributor to how women will act is how many women are in senior leadership. So if there's a lot of women in senior leadership, women tend to cooperate more, collaborate more, because they see like, oh, well, you can make it and I can make it and you can, like, we can all make it. And if there's not very many women, then the scarcity principle starts to play in, and it's going to be either you or me, and I want it to be me, so it can't be you, right?
Right.
So, women in subordinate positions will only be cooperative in an organization so long as there are women in the top leadership. Without a visible signal that women are, or can be, in charge, women in lower positions will be unpleasant to other women. Sounds like you're relegating women to a status of impulsive, optics-oriented, vindictive children. But, that aside, we're still hovering on the mere presence of women and playing the numbers game, aren't we?
And so that's been the largest factor that they've found is really more cultural than anything to do with the individual personalities or that they want to help or don't want to help. So I think, Benita, to your point, right?
Right.
It does require critical mass. And so that is the starting point. But how do we get there, right?
Right.
In order to get there, there needs to be a lot more understanding of what the challenge is.
I completely agree. There needs to be more understanding of what the challenge really is, because so far we have presence and critical mass as solutions against women being uncooperative and adversarial towards other women, while men need to do more housework in order to allow women to advance in the workplace.
So one of the things that when I go in and do the work I do inside corporations is I recognized there's this thought process I hear a lot from especially men in the groups I work with. Well, it seems like we have a woman on our board. Like we're doing really well. Like I seem to work around women, so we must be doing okay with this gender equality thing. And I show this slide in the beginning, and I often get a lot of stares like, that can't be us, that can't be us. That's not our company. And I have run across very seldom a company that this is not the same image as their pipeline.
Huh. So you're saying that in all of the companies you've worked with, this seems to be a common trend. No matter what the company's hiring initiatives or workplace accommodations are to provide equal opportunity, or specifically to advance women, you see the same numbers. That's very interesting. Well, obviously, it's institutional sexism, and not the result of individual people making individual choices.
So just presenting numbers sometimes I think can be very persuasive, but I think that also the experience of this starts to break down. Like I actually am fortunate in that when I came up, my mentors were actually women in the workplace. They were all women of the senior vice president or higher level.
Wait, there were women superior to you? Women who were your mentors? Senior vice president and higher? Huh. Okay. Go on.
That's, I found out later, not common. And the experience of those people who I respect, that I care about their experiences. So suddenly seeing this and recognizing that the people who mentored me were fighting and fighting and fighting in what I thought was a meritocracy was actually actively trying to keep them from being at the top level.
Actively trying to keep them from the top level, and yet they were at the top level. Got it.
So when I see this and when I present this, I think one of the biggest things, it's like the shock factor for men specifically. But I heard something in another session yesterday. A woman said, "I felt the glass ceiling hit me." Has that been your experience? Have you felt the glass ceiling?
Anyone? Anyone at all? Well, on your panel you have a founder and CEO, a vice president of human resources, and a senior director at Walgreens. Yes, tell us about the glass ceiling.
I'll respond to that, not because I've felt the glass ceiling, but when I did my original research at Sun Microsystems in the early 90s, what was just amazing to me, it's changed since then, but it was very clear that director level was the level that you were promoted to, where you become a spokesperson for the company. And that's where the glass ceiling was. It was just like so clear that you just couldn't become a spokesperson for the company. Now, again, that's changed. There are people that are at it's a higher level now.
Okay, things were worse in the past, but now they are much better. And...
But still, it's that sense of something so clearly delineating someone being promoted to that level.
I would say a lot of my middle career I spent in smaller organizations, and so I didn't feel it as much because I think in smaller organizations, just the likelihood that everyone knows you and they know how good the work is that you do, I was able to progress pretty easily. I would say when you get into larger organizations, I think the glass ceiling appears much thicker, we'll say, much thicker glass.
And such is only true for women. Men competing in a large organization to stand out, be recognized, and advance towards higher positions, with more prerequisites, more responsibility, etc., men don't have to push against similar obstacles, do they?
And I definitely have felt it, right?
Right?
And it comes in the form of, well, you need better executive presence. Or, I think you're kind of harsh. People say you're kind of harsh. I'm like, really? Because I have the best engagement scores out of anyone in the company.
And such challenges are only ever made to women. Men are never challenged on their attitude or suitability for a position. Got it.
So I'm pretty sure people like working in my organization, right?
Right.
And so it's not about the data, it's about more the softer areas, right?
Right.
Not my accomplishments, not,
It's like literally invisible.
right.
Right.
Literally invisible. You can't see it, you can't quantify it, but you know it's there. And you know that it is only affecting women. Got it.
Yeah. Fascinating. If you want. I'll pass. Okay.
Nadia Shargalov hasn't said a word yet. I am very curious about what she has to say.
So one of the other things that in my work we end up doing is presenting numbers that persuade people that this is a big deal. Why are we even talking? Why is the glass ceiling something that we should be talking about aside from the women getting into leadership? Well, let's talk about just the business context of this. A lot of these numbers have been put out. This is my favorite study. It's a UC Davis study of 400 public companies. The 34 firms with the highest gender diversity among executives and board members earned 300% more revenue and 50% higher profit than the average company.
Really? Wow. Well, that would seem definitive. But, gosh, I wonder how UC Davis conducted that survey. Oh, they took the top 400 companies ranked by the total percentage of women among directors and highest paid executives. So, focusing only on the top of the company's hierarchy, not the company overall. Oh, and would you look at this, from page 7 of the full report. Return on assets, ROA, and return on equity, ROE, are widely regarded as strong measures of corporate health that control for the resources being used by the company. ROE is measured as the net profit scaled by average shareholder equity. The top 25 have a median return on assets and equity of 4.4% and 12.2%, respectively. This is at least 74% higher than for the entire sample of 400 companies, although 7 of the top 25 companies have negative ROA and ROE. The question of why these measures of corporate health are correlated in our data with the fraction of female leaders remains to be explored. Our findings do not imply any causal relationship. No causal relationship. Got it.
These are not small numbers, and I'm wondering why aren't executives in large companies just running through whatever wall they have to make gender diversity a top priority?
Maybe because there's no proof that gender diversity in leadership has any causal relationship with the measurements of corporate health? Maybe? Finally.
I think that for many large corporations, especially those here in Silicon Valley, I think that it's definitely on the agenda. Why hasn't there been a whole lot of traction? Well, I think a couple things, and I think you might have touched on it earlier, is that when you show that first slide with the pipeline and the numbers dwindling as they go up, that's usually a shocking slide to both men and women in organizations. I think that they look at it in the perspective of, I'm not biased. I work with women. I have women customers, or I have men customers, and I work with men, and we all get along, and this isn't applicable here, right?
Right. And yet, somehow, according to our moderator, these statistics are common across many, many organizations. Despite your average person not holding any bias, those numbers are not unusual. It's almost as if personal agency might be at work here, rather than overt gender discrimination. Funny, that.
We did a gender workshop just last week, actually, in my company, and that was exactly the sentiment. So it's that having that unconscious bias and not being aware of the barriers to true gender partnership in the workplace.
Unconscious bias. The bias of being asleep. Invisible, unconscious. It's not about the numbers, it's really about the numbers. Diverse leadership means more profitable companies, except there's no causal relationship between those two factors. Collectively, our speakers seem to have come to this discussion all holding empty bags. I had thought these experienced and professional leaders would be able to clearly articulate the issues preventing and the solutions needing to achieve gender equality. Instead, all of their opening gambits are about the invisible, the unconscious, and how men are failing women by not sharing the household chores. It's about the numbers, but it's not just about the numbers. Diversity means success, though we have no proof to really declare that. The panel discussion goes on for another hour after this, but both my brain and my patience are exhausted. But I will close with this thought. If someone shows you a graph depicting a disparity of women versus men in any area of life, and does not first provide evidence that such numbers are not the result of personal choices, be wary. Be very, very wary. As always, thank you for watching.